Welcome, my dear audience and friends, to another episode of Cancer Convos with Grace B. Happy 2024. I hope you guys had a fantastic year last year, and I know you will have a beautiful one this year as well. Touch wood. For us, we're happy to be here presenting and giving you the necessary information that you need regarding your health and wellness. Now, being 2024, we are kicking off season 6 of Cancer Convos with Grace B by featuring a very amazing rare cancer survivor who you'll be getting to meet in a couple of seconds. As you all know, and as I did last year, Rare Disease Day is marked at the end of February to raise awareness, among policymakers and the public about rare diseases, rare cancers, and all that, hence our next inspiring guest. So, Sean Wachter, whose life journey from sportsman to cancer survivor, professional, a dad, husband, and everything is just an inspiring story. But I'm not going to spill the beans right now. You'll be listening to him in a few. Welcome, Sean, for coming to join us today. Thank you so much and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well, Grace. Thank you so kindly for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
It's so wonderful to have you. So, please walk us through, your journey briefly about how you got your diagnosis.
Okay, I guess to preface what I'm about to say is I'd like to just tell your listeners what I share with other folks as well. And hopefully this story will help serve as a testament to that. One of the biggest and most powerful tools we as humans have when it comes to dealing with our health and dealing with our healthcare providers is making sure that we advocate for ourselves. And I think one of the most important things is that we need to realize while our doctors have gone through all the appropriate rigorous schooling and testing, at the end of the day, there's always a chance. And if you feel something's not right with yourself or something maybe isn't going the way it should be, don't be afraid to speak up, whether it be mental health or physical health, whatever the case may be. Never surrender your ability to advocate for yourself. No one knows your body better than you. And, while we all have the utmost respect and reverence for our physicians, and they most certainly have gone through rigorous schooling and licensing, at the end of the day, they're human as well. They can make mistakes, they can make oversights, and if they are dismissive of you, it does not give you, or them exactly the right to ignore what you're saying. And I implore you to keep kind of grinding away until you get the answer that you want. Because what happened to me was in March of 2016. I wouldn't say I was a fairly healthy person. Unfortunately, I had a very bad spinal accident and wound up essentially costing me my ability to walk, and I subsequently needed about 9 surgeries to fix things. And just as I was regaining my ability to walk again, I started to not feel well. And it was a different type of not feeling well. And again, went to doctors, went to specialists, and it was all very dismissive. No, this is all related to your neck. This is related to the accident. This is related to the injury. And I kept telling them, no, this is a different type of headache. This is a different type of numbness. This is a different type of dizziness. And this went on and on and on and on. And actually, anecdotally, 3 separate times, being a young man at the time, being single and 31 years old, I had attempted to date and find someone to, spend my life with. And unfortunately, on those 3 dates, you don't really get a second date with somebody when you black out and collapse in the middle of the date. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, there was one of the 3 times I actually happened to take a date to Citi Field to see the Mets play, and right when we got up to the top of the rotunda, I passed out right then and there, and
Oh, yeah.
she very kindly left me.
You're kidding.
Oh, no, no, no. And she unfortunately was one of New York City's finest. So you would think that someone would stop and render aid to somebody that they came to a game with, but no, she left me for the EMTs, and I went off to a hospital, and I heard what I kept hearing for months. Oh, you're probably drunk, or you have the flu. Well, I don't drink, and I didn't have the flu at that time. But again, just another instance of a healthcare provider being dismissive. And it eventually boiled down to a Friday night in September, September 23rd, 2016, to be exact. I went to a local hospital, and I don't want to get confused with any of the fine institutions that render oncological care to some of your listeners and some of the institutions that I love near and dear to my heart. But again, local hospital. Went there. I had been there a few times to complain about the issues I was having. And on this instance, they actually wanted to hold me for a psychiatric evaluation because they thought that I was conjuring all this stuff up in my head. And
No.
I was so turned off by what was being said to me and how I was being treated, despite feeling like absolute garbage. I basically just packed my bags and said, okay, thanks. If this is how you're going to treat me, I'll just go home and sit on my couch. And I still knew something was wrong that night. I got horrifically sick. I could barely make it from my bed to the bathroom in my 1 bedroom apartment. And the next morning, I went over to my folks' house and I said to my dad, who was a really super stern and strict guy, but still my best friend, he had said, look, you know, you're 31 years old. We got to get this figured out. You need to devise a plan. Let's get this plan in action on Monday to figure out what's going to go on with you. But you can stay here this weekend. But after this weekend, we need to figure out either A, what's wrong with you, or B, just try something else.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to Monday morning, my parents had some, errands to run. And unfortunately, the errand that they had to run that day was cleaning out my aunt's home, who had passed away from adenocarcinoma 2 months before my own diagnosis. And ironically enough, I was the family member selected to stand at the lectern and give her eulogy. And I talked about if I had ever gotten cancer, how I would want to be like my aunt. And that was crazy because, like I said, my folks went out to clean her house, and 10 minutes after they left their house, I wound up on their living room floor having a
Oh,
massive stroke, brain bleed, all caused by a tumor that was about the size of a golf ball in my cerebellum. Luckily, I was able to mash enough buttons on my cell phone to get my dad on the phone. At the time, my face was starting to droop, and he knew what was going on. My father is a retired police officer from Long Island, so he also has some medical training. And when he got back to the house, he knew, having worked in the area, that it would be quicker for him to just throw me in his car and floor it to the hospital than wait for an ambulance. And when I got to that hospital, I was greeted with the same nonsense again. They put me in the non-emergency area, asked me to fill out insurance forms as I'm throwing up bile on myself and my face is drooping. And they said that I possibly had a head cold. And I said, can I please have a scan? And they said, you're too young for it. And at that point, I had to use some crass language and tell them, give me the fill in the blank scan.
mm-hmm.
And 6 seconds of being in that CT machine, they pulled me back out. And next thing you know, bells and whistles, stroke team, CT room, stroke team, CT room. And,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So, not the type of place where you want to be like, well, joke's on you, but well, joke was on them because I kept telling them something was wrong and they just thought I was nuts.
Yeah. You had been telling them months before, telling people months before or weeks
Months,
before. Yes.
months, weeks. And, not only that hospital alone, but I went and saw specialists. I went and saw my primary care physician. And I'll tell you, the minute that I was stable and under the care of Sloan Kettering, I completely wiped slate of all my physicians and made sure that I got ones that were all in the same network. So
Mm-hmm.
that way, if something happened, it wasn't like, well, let me call so-and-so service. No, they were able to pull up everything under the same computer. And that's so important as well.
Yes.
But, it took over a week in the hospital for them to stabilize me. I was very fortunate that there was a covering doctor and his service from another hospital that was going to perform the craniotomy to remove the tumor that they had found. And the doctor was a very old school stand-up guy. And I remember
Nice.
from what my dad told me, he opened me up, cleaned out the tumor, and came out into the waiting room and said, sir, your son has melanoma, and it's bad. And the doctors at that local hospital, or I should say the handlers, started to get worried because they were like, well, we don't have the path back. And the surgeon told my father, and he told the other people from that particular hospital, I've been doing this for 35 years. I know a melanoma tumor when I see when that young man has cancer. So it took me about 2 days to come through, and I got my diagnosis from my dad. And
Oh dear.
he's such a special person to me to have that put on to him, but I'm sorry.
So sorry. I mean, I'm
But
tearing up here. I know what you're feeling. I've felt the same, so I know.
you know, you're not supposed to,
I'm sorry.
you're not supposed to bury your kids, they say,
No,
and my father, he reached deep, and I remember he said to me, he said, Sean, you got cancer, buddy. And going through what I had been through with my neck breaking and
your
basically
spine and everything.
having everything taken from me already, I knew, and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
please
just
be you.
I just knew that what needed to be done. I knew what my parents needed to have done, and I knew how I needed to respond to this. So in that moment, I didn't need to just worry about Sean. I needed to worry about my parents as well.
Yes.
So when my dad said, "Hey, Sean, you have cancer," my response was, "Yes, sir." And he just looked at me and he said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "You have prepared me for this moment my entire life." And I said, "We're gonna fight this thing." So, that
Sorry, darling.
hey, that's all right. I just get so emotional sometimes when I
I
talk
know.
about my dad, as I'm so fortunate to have him here. And it's just one of those things that, when you get sick, you realize all the things you've taken for granted. And my old man and my mom, hey, look, you know what? They're tough customers, but they love their stupid son, and it's I wouldn't be here without them. My dad, until my lovely wife came along about a year into me being sick, go figure. I started to date this beautiful woman who left a very terrible situation with a 14-month-old child, and it's her story to tell, so not to get too deep into it, but
Hmm.
if someone taking their 14-year-old baby girl and leaving a house, obviously they're not just packing up and leaving because it's what they want to do. It was for my wife's safety and her well-being of my
Hmm.
stepdaughter. So I always tell her, you walked out of a house fire into a forest fire. Why? And she just so beautifully said to me, I believed in you. And I felt that if you could carry on, so could I.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
just
wonderful.
up until I had that support system in my wife and my beautiful stepdaughter, and now, our 4-month-old baby girl, our miracle baby. Before I had them, I had my dad, and it was never an or a really, Sean. It was, all right, let's get in the car. It didn't matter if it was 2 a.m., 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and it didn't matter if you had to sit there for 7 hours, 12 hours. He was there for the good, the bad and the ugly. So,
Absolutely. God bless him. God bless him. I mean, there's nothing like, in fact, I believe that that's what has carried you this far. That support system, and the love and care from everybody, because that is so important when we're going through everything we. Have been through, but touch wood, as I said, you keep standing. So another thing I wanted to ask, you have come a long way. Um, Coincidentally, I was also diagnosed in 2016,
oh, okay.
Yes. So 7 years, more than 7 years now in remission, touch wood. What would you say was the greatest lesson that you learned on this journey? Just one lesson that hits home, you know, during this journey. What would you say it was?
I would say for anybody who is in this journey or has been through this journey,
Or
um,
is going through this
going
journey,
through this journey,
watching now.
watching now, I think one of the greatest lessons that I learned was once you go through this or are going through this, you'll realize there are certain things in your life that you thought were scary, and then you'll realize they weren't really scary at all. And then you'll think and you'll go, well, gee, I remember this tough time in my life. And then you'll say, no, that really wasn't tough at all.
Hmm.
That was a cakewalk. It's just the appreciation and the perspective, like, is just it's really something that, unfortunately, it's an education only available to people like us in this
Hmm.
community.
Hmm.
That's why I say that, many people view cancer as a curse. And some people look at me with a very cocked head when I say this, but I view cancer as a blessing. I actually think cancer was one of the most beautiful things that ever happened to me. It was, it was liberating. It freed me from a life of just being mundane and kicking my feet up and resting on my laurels, and really putting stock into things that in the grand scheme of life really didn't matter.
Matter. Yes.
And when I got sick, and I will tell people this till I'm blue in the face, in the past 7.5, 8 years, I have done the best living I have done in comparison to the previous 31 years before I had cancer. I have done more now than I could even imagine. I am doing things that were my wildest dreams as a child. And I just, hopefully, by sharing that, letting your listeners know that, one of the big things is keep making plans, keep getting out of bed, keep kicking ass.
Wonderful.
You
Hmm.
know, there is life during and after cancer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sean, for your wonderful words. And how are you paying this forward? I want to know. What is it you're doing to? I know you have
uh,
a large
I, I
community.
I chuckle because what I am doing right now is not really what people would consider the norm, nor would it be considered the norm for a father of two young girls working on an MBA while also sitting as the vice president of a global marketing company that works with nonprofits. I spend my evenings not wearing a Batman outfit, but something work. I'm still going out and putting on spandex. I spend my free time as a professional wrestler, and that was a dream of mine when I was a young boy. I had tried it a few times, and life got in the way, whether it been college football or my neck injury. But I returned to wrestling after I had gotten the okay and all clear as a way of raising some money to for cancer research and
Mhm,
cancer awareness. And the folks at ESPN and the V Foundation came along and saw my story in one of the local papers and on
mhm,
LinkedIn, and they just said, "We like you." And it went from maybe wrestling once a year for a fundraiser to me now wrestling again full time, and building a brand, building awareness, but you know using a platform to show people, like, look, it doesn't need to be wrestling. It could be
mhm.
something as simple as going back to the gym, or going back to work, just not giving up on things because you're sick. That's why I say make those plans, plan on being here. It's just nothing is more powerful, I feel, than when you have cancer and you get up the next morning and you put your feet on the floor. Because just putting your feet on the
Absolutely.
floor is the biggest victory onto itself. And it's the biggest fill in the blank you to cancer, because like Stuart Scott said, when you die from cancer, it doesn't mean you lose to cancer.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live. So just live. And I encourage your listeners to do just that. I know it may seem weird. I know people may say, oh, go back to your normal life. Well, there is no such thing as a normal
There's
life.
no such thing.
No, there isn't. But you know what? Keep
If
making,
we're
keep
we're doing crazier things by the day.
exactly. But keep making plans. Cancel
Yeah.
plans. Don't make plans. Just keep doing you. Keep on
Mhm.
living. And that's what I could tell your listeners. Don't give up on your dreams. Keep chasing them.
Absolutely. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the amazing Sean, who has, left his soundbite. Keep making those plans. Thank you so much, Sean, for being here with us and, sharing your experience and giving us those wisdom nuggets. We love you and keep making those plans too.
Thank
God
you very
bless
much.
you.
God bless.
Bye bye.
Bye now.